turn this handle on, that creates a brake. So as you can get the brakes on. It's the first thing you have to make sure of. You can stop before you move. But, that's got to come around to 21 inches of mercury. We test it. We then take the engine tender handbrake off. Not really. And then we move this lever to whichever direction we want to go. In this case, backwards. And pull this lever, and that will move.
Magic, so it was.
We've gone far enough, this one stops it.
So, have you got anything more to do before the run tomorrow?
No, we're all ready for tomorrow now.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It means I have to get off.
Right, bye.
If anyone can be called a Duchess's best friend, it's Kim, who accompanies her everywhere with an oily rag, like a butler with a napkin. On the great day itself, Kim isn't actually allowed to drive the engine on a British rail line. Only full-time British rail drivers can do that. Not that there are many people left in British Rail who still know how. And it may be that one day we'll have lots of steam engines and no steam drivers. One thing we'll never run out of, though, is steam train enthusiasts. And for today's heavyweight contest between the Duchess of Hamilton and the Settle-Carlisle Railway, every seat has been booked in advance by enthusiasts, nostalgics, connoisseurs and experts. One of them is local historian and non-stop enthusiast Colin Speakman.
This is Settle and the beginning of the line, really.
That's right. It was known as the Long Drag, of course, because the climb starts here, and there's something like 20-odd miles of continuous climb, a tremendous amount of work for locomotive men and their crews.
Especially the steam men.
That's right, and the steam engines. Yeah. A little easier with diesel, obviously.
The reason the line is here is nothing to do with the desire of people in Settle to have a day out in Carlisle, or even vice versa. It's because the Midland Railway were desperate to get their own express main line to Scotland, and the only way they could drive it was over the mountains. Progress was so hard that they even petitioned Parliament to be allowed to give it up. Parliament refused permission, so the Midland spent 5 long, horrible, dirty, cold years completing the line. And the worst bit, for the builders then, and the engine now, is the 15-mile long drag to the summit. Nobody knows quite how powerful the Duchess is, because they've never been able to shovel coal in fast enough to get her up to full power. It's not the train which reaches 100% output, it's the firemen. Even 2 firemen wouldn't be enough. The line was built by thousands of Irish navvies living in townships rather like gold rush towns, with their own shops, chapels, even tramways. It's odd to think that the Romans were here for hundreds of years and left hardly anything behind except Hadrian's Wall. The Irish were here for just 5 and left great monuments behind, bridges, tunnels, viaducts. The greatest of all is the Ribblehead Viaduct, now crumbling so much that passage across it is restricted to one line in the middle. The rise and fall of the Irish Empire, indeed.
People keep talking about Ribblehead Viaduct as if it was the big one. Is there something special about it?
Well, again, it's a long and very colourful history. Initially, of course, they simply wanted to fill in Batty Moss Bog and run it across the top. But they found it was quite impossible, so they hit upon a really rather brilliant engineering solution to build this enormous viaduct out of local sandstone and limestone. But inevitably, it's now suffering from wear and tear. It lasted well over a century, but it's going to be a major problem to maintain, and it could, in fact, be the great question mark over the future of this railway.
You mean the whole line could exist, but there'd be a little gap in the middle?
That's right. There's talk of stopping the trains at one end of the viaduct and, making people walk to the far end and continuing on the next train. We hope it won't happen.
So this is the dreaded Bleemore Tunnel.
It's a dreadful, nasty hole, something like 2,500 feet long, 500 feet underground, and a place that was very difficult to build. A lot of lives lost, a lot of expense. And railwaymen, I think, have always hated it, particularly in the days of steam trains, when it was a very nasty place to go through.
Yeah, I've never met anyone who liked it at all. Is this weather typical of the line? Do you ever get good days to go up here?
Well, we sometimes talk about settle-carlisle weather. That's the kind of days where the rain comes sideways. But at the same time, it can change remarkably quickly and be incredibly beautiful in a matter of moments. Very near the summit now. Something like 1,100 feet above sea level.
That's high.
We're at Dent Head, coming up to Dent Station, which in fact is the highest station on any railway line certainly in England and Wales.
And nowhere near Dent, as far as I can.
4.5 miles away, so it was quite a long walk when you arrived at Dent to walk between the station and the town. People have often asked the old story, why was the station there? Because the railway line went there.
What are those strange pillar-like things up there?
Snow fences. One of the problems in this line, of course, is that the weather can create tremendous difficulties. There are stories of trains disappearing under snowdrifts for something like 3 or 4 days before they can finally dig them out.
This stop is Garsdale, but it's the same thing every stop. All the experts leave their seats and come rushing forward to photograph the engine and peer at its workings. They remind me rather of a squad of medical men, making sure the Duchess doesn't have the slightest cough or splutter, even though she's smoking so much. The surgeons themselves are dressed in orange operating jackets. These are the super enthusiasts who handle the coal and the water and, of course, the crowds.
Don't go behind where
Cross
people are
behind the
photographing,
photographers, please, ladies and gentlemen, then you won't be in the way.
You get the impression, going through this beautiful but desolate countryside, that the builders of the line had only one place in mind, far away Glasgow. What I wanted to know was how much the people who lived here got from the new railway.
Quite a lot. Local farming, for example, benefited. The dairy industry, it became possible to get your milk collected and taken to the nearest railway station, for example Appleby, and taken even on overnight trains to London. Express dairies, Edenvale dairies, all developed dairy farming in the region.
Is that where the yogurt comes from?
Originally, it gave a great stimulus to the local economy.
Of course, we are not the only film crew out today. Almost everyone on the train seems to be producing and directing and shooting their own film. And at Appleby Station, the Duchess responds by putting on a special show for the cameras, as well as full sound effects for the microphones. Closing the settle-carlisle line could do serious damage to the Japanese photographic industry, not to mention wipe out the British anorak business.
conservationists like you, who are fighting to keep the line open now, will probably 100 years ago be fighting to stop it being built in the first place.
Oh, I've absolutely no doubt about the fact. But the fact that it was built and is there and is a great piece of architecture means I think we ought to make the best of it. We ought to use it.
So
and enjoy
it's
it.
bigger than just a railway line. It's actually sort of part of historical
I
heritage.
think so. It's a part of the evolution, certainly, of the landscape of the Yorkshire Dales and the Eden Valley.
Somebody once said that the Settle-to-Carlisle line was naught but scenery, and this is certainly true after Appleby, when the hills retreat into a watchful distance and the line slides quietly through the Eden Valley, a land flowing with milk and yoghurt. After that back-breaking run up to the summit, it's a gentle jog to Carlisle, the border town where the Midland finally linked up with Scotland and that profitable line to Glasgow. Today the train turns right here, off to Newcastle, home to York, but I get off to find a train back to London. It'll be a good, fast electric train, and they won't have had to spend hours loading it up with coal and water. You just switch it on, and off it goes. And this is the way the world is going. I know all this. I also know that it won't be half so grand or aristocratic or breathtaking as the train we've been on today. It won't even smell half as good. The next day, I'll have forgotten all about my electric ride to London. But once you've been over the top with the Duchess of Hamilton, the memory stays with you.